is Primus Tracks with Josh, Frankie, and Soya.
What a couple of dumb shits.
I will always cherish the memories.
Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations! There's other places to find us, I suppose. Instagram, Threads, the Facebook. All those are named Primus Tracks. PrimusTracksPod@gmail.com is the email address. I'm Josh. Joining me today, Frankie Berestein.
Hi, Josh.
It's a big day today here at Primus Tracks. Surprise! We have more Oysterhead to talk about, so there's one thing. And you know, when you do a surprise episode, you have to bring the big guns or the heavies or the names that resonate. And I've got one for you today, Frankie. Welcome back to our good pal, he completes the tripod, Tim Soya.
All right, here we are.
Yeah! Tim Soya live from another hotel room across the ocean.
Oh, man. Frankie's forehead and the hotel room behind me, it's becoming a thing, dude.
The milieu. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? It's familiar, it's comfortable, puts us all at ease. And
right on. Well, I'm happy to be here. I'll do what I can to be a part of this episode. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's 2:30 in the morning or what have you in your locale, and you braved the night to speak with us, and of course we appreciate that.
Right on. Well, I'm always happy to be here. You know that. And I got fuck all to do at 2:30 in the morning, so I might as well wake up and talk to you guys for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, you do have some stuff going on, Soya, and we should mention that Victim's Family is putting out some new music, which is exciting to me. And you guys are doing that with Nasal Rod. So you guys have a split LP called, and I love this name, In the Modern Meat Space.
That's right.
Love that name. That's coming out on Nadine Records. Is it March 22, I think?
Yep, that's correct. Coming up here.
Yes. All right. Yeah.
The thing is, when you finally got to see Victim's Family, we played with Nasal Rod, opened up for us down there in Eugene, wherever that was.
That was a great time. Both of you guys, both acts were fantastic.
Yeah, and if you see any of the promo pictures and the pictures on the record when it comes out, they were all taken at that show after the show.
Awesome.
Like before and after. They had their photographer buddy with them who was kind of just documenting as they went along. But I haven't been able to get together with those guys, and they're like, you know, because I'm always busy, and it's like, oh, we need a new photo, and it's like, well, wait, what about Nasal Rod's dude? And so, oh, right, no brainer. So that's like, there's a group photo with both bands together. He did after the show, and there's some cool pictures of us from before the show, which is pretty cool.
Rockin'. All right.
5 songs.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm looking for it. I heard the first Victim's Family one that was put out, the first person shooter, right?
Yep. For the record, that is my least favorite song of the 5 we did on that one. So it's only going to get better.
It only gets better. I'm looking forward to that.
I don't dislike it. It's just not, I don't dislike it. It's just not my favorite one.
Well, I'm looking forward to it getting better in your eyes.
Okay. I know you pre-purchased one or pre-ordered one, so thank you very much, Josh Bald.
Oh, you bet. I'm excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you guys, of course, get to play some shows. I know you're over in Europe for a few weeks. Hopefully.
They're itching. We're trying to figure it out. My shoulder's still a little messed up. My wife is kind of like, until you get surgery, you can't do Victim's Family. And I was like,
That's a bummer.
It's hard, man. I can't do it. It hurts so bad to try to do the stuff I do in that band, you know?
Yeah.
You got a torn rotator cuff and a ripped tendon in your forearm and a tennis elbow on my left side. It's just like, I'm a mess, man. I need to get help. It just gets worse and worse when I play a million miles an hour on some of that stuff.
Godspeed there. I really hope you get that taken care of. Man,
we got through the recording and it's about to come out. That's really enough for me right now. I'm not going to push it, you know.
Well, I hope you guys get to do something with Nasal Rod going forward.
We'll be back, and of course we'll come up your way when we do, you know, because Nasal Rod's from up there, and we love playing Seattle and Portland and Eugene is always fun, you know.
Excellent. That's something to look forward to for sure. So go check that out, guys. And today we're going to talk about 2 bonus tracks, and I'm using air quotes. Frankie, you dragged us here to talk about 2 tracks called "We're Here" and "Ahoy There." Greetings from Oysterhead. So what are we doing here today?
So we have these 2 completely overlooked tracks, which I'm sure a lot of people have never heard about because they are tucked away in a very obscure corner of the internet. And I do appreciate them for what they are, musical collages. Before anyone gets too excited, I mean, no, they are not technically bonus songs per se, but they are two pieces of music created by Stewart Copeland using both live performances from the 2001 tour as well as some studio jamming and improvisation. So what you get are two sonic landscapes which complement the record interestingly if you feel a little depressed after Owner of the World is done. So if you're aching for a little more Oysterhead, these two songs are there to cater to that.
What's up with the obscure corner of the internet? Where can one find these?
So they used to be available for download a long time ago, right?
Right, on the Oysterhead website, as I
Yeah.
recall. Okay. Now there's a little corner of the internet. Soya, you might not have heard of this one. It's called YouTube.
Ah, YouTube, yes.
A couple of
That's
people.
a dim dandy of a site. I do watch that now and again. I find stuff on there. Yeah, I'm aware of that one.
Yeah, I found out about it like last month. Pretty fun stuff over there. So, as with anything anymore, it's there on YouTube. So, as Frankie stated, if you listen to the last episode, our last episode, and yes, the tears rolled down your face with the realization that we were finished talking about Oysterhead, fear not, for today we will. And you have these two pieces by Stewart Copeland to keep you company as you rewind your Oysterhead cassette to get back to the beginning. So these were around on the Oysterhead website pretty early. I think they went up shortly after the 2001 tour wrapped.
That's right.
Speaking of the 2001 tour, Tim Soya, you were on that thing.
I was indeed on that tour.
So you're going to remember all these little bits and pieces that Stewart incorporated, I imagine.
Yeah, I've got some choice memories that always come to mind when that tour comes up, which I'll share. There's nothing X-rated or not supposed to be told what happened much on that tour. It was pretty fun. So
good.
We'll get to that when you guys are done talking about these songs. I was absolutely unaware of these two tunes. I had no idea Stewart did this.
Oh yeah, and so here they are. They've been available one way or another for quite some time. And of course, I know Soya, you're a busy guy, so you don't go searching for hidden tracks and that sort of thing.
Correct.
Trivia, Josh.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember why Les is asking the audience if they are sure they are in the right place?
I don't.
Because there was a lot of Primus fans and Phish fans.
No.
Forming a wall of death on either side and then slamming into each other, right? The Primus and Phish.
It's because Jane's Addiction was performing across the street.
Oh, that's right.
So Les is inquiring with the audience if they are certain they're not in the wrong place.
That's funny because Les talked to Perry that day, and they both wanted to go to each other's show, and it wasn't possible because they were playing at the exact same time, right? It's kind of funny.
They could have done something novel that night, you know. Let's, hey, everybody. I know it was 2001. You could do it in 2024, but maybe not then. But it would have been fun for each of them to have like a smartphone on the side stage and then have a live stream. Go, we're going to pause the show.
I think Jane's Addiction might have been playing at the Hollywood Bowl, actually.
Okay.
It was one of their first big reunion moments right then. And
Oysterhead was at the Palladium.
Yeah,
Oysterhead was at the Palladium, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to look up setlist.com or some shit to find it on where Jane's Addiction played that night. But I thought it was the Hollywood Bowl. But I could be wrong. I could easily be wrong.
Only the big venues for Jane's.
Well, it was a big comeback, and that tour everybody was stoked, man.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Les had to miss it. You and Les were working that night. You couldn't go see him.
Well, I would have been there. If we had a night off, me and Les would have been there absolutely, positively, 100%.
Ah. Did you end up seeing him on that reunion at all, that run?
I did. Okay. I saw them in Chicago at the Aragon Ballroom, and it was the one where Flea was on bass.
Nice.
When they first got back together and Eric Avery chose not to do it, Flea did the first run or the first leg, or I don't remember how many shows he did, but he was the bass player on the initial return of Jane's Addiction. And that's what we saw.
Oh, I was unaware of that. I'm sure he held it down.
And I would assume we were on a Primus. I think we were on Punch Bowl tour when that happened, which would have been, okay, so 2001 is later, so they'd been together for a while. We saw them in 95-ish, 96-ish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I remember it was on the Punch Bowl tour.
Nice.
And Smashing Pumpkins opened up for fun.
Oh, wow. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, and it was when Melissa Oftemer was the bass player, and Darcy, the original bass player, was in the VIP area, standing right with me and Les, with all these other people watching. It was kind of funny.
Dude, that's a big night.
It was good. Aragon Ballroom's a cool place, man.
Yeah, like that venue. I was just thinking about that venue the other night, last night. I've seen Primus there. Yeah, I've seen Primus there a couple times.
So Josh, tell me if you agree with my perspective. What I get from these two tracks is that Ahoy there is kind of a reflection of the softer side of the record. We have the acoustic guitar there. The way that the track starts, it sounds like something washing over you at the beach, right? It's got that atmosphere to it.
Yep.
There's also the trademark Stewart percussion at the end. It reminds me of the palette cleansers that we discussed on the record, stuff such as Radon Balloon, Birthday Boys. And on the other hand, We Are Here is a bit more abrasive, more confrontational, kind of a reflection of the more upbeat side of the record, like Pseudo-Suicide, Mr. Oysterhead, sure, why not even Armies on Ecstasy, right?
Sure.
So both tracks kind of condense what the record is about.
Oh, that's an interesting interpretation. I was taking the 30,000 foot view thinking, man, Stewart must have had a great time because he's going back through the tapes and making these tracks. And actually, Soya, I wanted to hear your experience with that. In general, like it seems like Stewart just had a whale of a time going out on tour and playing with a trio again.
Yeah, it was a big moment because I don't think he had done a band like that since maybe Animal Logic.
It had been quite some time, yeah.
Which was 1989. I don't recall any other band that he did after Animal Logic with Stanley Clarke.
Mm-hmm. I think he said he hadn't played drums for at least a decade before the Oysterhead.
Yeah, so it was cool. And it was cool that because it was a monumental moment, we brought out a whole recording rack and rig and had a dude that ran it. Everything was recorded. Every sound check, every moment was captured on that tour. So of course, Stewart being on all of it, easily got access to all of it to fuck around with it. I'm sure is why this all came out,
Yeah.
I don't remember Les ever talking about this being done, that Stewart was going to make some funny songs,
Oh, yeah. I'm sure Stu just took copies of the tapes or the tapes themselves and said, I'll do something with this. And I'm sure nobody objected.
100%.
Yeah. Frankie, your hand is politely raised.
I wanted to ask Tim, as you may be aware, at this point, Oysterhead is one of the most coveted shows fans could hope to attend. But back in 2001, Les already had Frog Brigade, Sausage, and Holy Mackerel under his belt. So in hindsight, when you were witnessing this tour unfold, did you have any feeling that you were witnessing something like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal, something historical, or did it seem like just another Les project?
No, I mean, it was definitely special, because of the three heavyweights that decided to do it together, and you knew it was something special. It wasn't just a Frog Brigade or this Trey Anastasio band again. It was we knew. I think I kind of figured there would be more. It sold so well and everybody was freaking out. We were kind of like, oh man, I bet we'll do another run. And then that was it, man. There was nothing until they did the reunion shows recently, or 10 years ago, whenever the heck that was.
Right, yeah, 2006 Bonnaroo, I think, and then not again until 2020, right, Frankie?
Yeah. That sounds right.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah, it did seem like a big deal. And I remember in the book, Lefkowitz said the record didn't do much, but the tour sold out exceedingly quickly, especially with that Phish crowd coming in, because they follow those guys around like mad. So it was almost like a guarantee that they were going to sell out, 2,500 seat.
And then Stewart Copeland came from out of nowhere, out of the woodwork, and Les got him to do it. And that was spectacular, The
big idea Frankie and I found by doing this album, the album track by track, and then sampling live cuts, is the energy of the live cuts is incredible. And they're just pushing pace, pushing tempo. You know, there's spots where they're figuring each other out, or it might sound sloppy, but boy, oh boy, are they pushing it, and it sounds like they're having a good time.
It was obvious everybody was having a good time.
Nice.
I'll give it that for sure. You know, there was not a bad moment. Everything was fun. Every night was killer.
On stage
to answer your question bluntly, Frankie, yeah, you have to figure, knowing it might not happen again, that you're standing there and Les and Trey and Stewart Copeland are up there ripping it, you know, to sold out crowds was fucking epic. You know,
It was thick.
It didn't make me want to listen to the record, but you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I am surprised there wasn't any kind of live release, considering there was that.
That is interesting because of how that every single note got recorded, sound check and show. You know, it's bizarre.
Now, was that a standard practice for Les and or Primus in the years prior to that, recording every single show?
To the extent that we did it, no. That was kind of like right when bands started putting together super professional recording racks and had a dude that was he had his own little board and he had a rack full of preamps, and like it was like, wasn't just like, you know, Derek out at front of house had a tape machine and he would just run a stereo feed into a tape machine. And then if Les wanted to listen to something, there was a cassette of it or a DAT or something, you know? I mean, people were doing it, but that was the first time I was on a tour where it was like every single note, every single thing gets recorded for, what do you call it? For the history of it. Or
posterity, I suppose.
Archival.
Well, there's another thing for Frankie to add to his list. When he breaks into the Claypool storage unit, he can nab those tapes too.
I think that if Frankie were to unroll the door and walk into the storage unit that is the Primus archives, I don't think we'd ever see him again. He would have a heart attack and die on the spot.
I would either have a heart attack, or hide there and stay there forever.
Well, you would fill your pockets in your car with as much shit as you could.
Yeah.
And you'd disappear. And you'd never see or hear from you again. Because you'd known you'd go to jail. And you're like, I got the Primus goodies I've always wanted that nobody else has.
In his cave with his precious. Mm-hmm. All of his preciouses. And I think it's reflected in these pieces that Stewart put together. Well, we'll start with Ahoy there because it's a little more low key. Frankie, did you have any time codes? Because I don't know what happened to the email you sent.
The intro, I like how it washes over.
Soya, get ready for Oysterhead to wash itself over you. It's a nice loop. Pretty. I feel like a light, fresh spring rain has just washed over me, and I feel dewy. I feel alive.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Josh. That's just exactly what I was thinking.
Go forward a little bit. We'll play a few more seconds, because I think he starts, doesn't he? And maybe I'm just thinking of We're Here, but Ahoy there, some chop, chopping some stuff up and making it a little more abstract.
I have a fun part for you, but you go ahead, and then I'll tell you specific time code.
Oh, tell me yours. I was just gonna pick one.
Oh no, you go first.
2 minutes and 22 seconds.
I wish was partial to pie. Especially apple pie. American is apple pie.
Are you sure you're in the right place?
There it is. I know it comes back around.
You could be in the wrong
check out 2 minutes with 25 seconds.
What? I just did that with Are You Sure You're in the Right Place?
Also, we were playing it simultaneously. That's crazy.
That's funny. So sounded like...
That's precisely what I was looking for.
Oh, good. Well, look at me. I guessed correctly. That pie stuff... That pie stuff sounds like it might be sound check, although I can't tell. But, just goofing around on the mic. Apple pie? Those are
Maybe
those little things.
Testing Groundhog's Day?
Why not? Those are all those things that... Yeah, Groundhog Day. Those are all those little things that I love to hear from, say, a sound check or a live show I haven't heard before. But I do. This one's nice and low-key, and then Stewart's sense of comedic timing by dropping in the apple pie.
Mm-hmm.
As American as. That's pretty fun.
Now, if you play the intro for We're Here, you'll see the stark contrast between the two tracks.
Oh, no. But I just got the refreshing spring rain. What's behind it? A tornado?
Yeah.
Well, I am from the Midwest, so I'm prepared. Go into the storm cellar. Whammo!
I will always cherish the memories.
That's right.
I will always cherish the memories. I think it came out pretty damn good myself. I don't know what you guys think. I will always cherish the memories. I have to admit, and I've said it in a drunken stupor many times on the bus while we're cruising down the highway at 4 in the morning, and I've said it in a drunken stupor.
I know I don't get down here enough.
Just Trey. That was some fancy guitar playing.
That part right there, with the whammo is funny. Yeah, this one's much more abstract and abrasive too, but it's fun. I like what Stewart's doing. He clearly was enjoying playing around with these tracks and these live recordings and putting some together. Although it's not a song, you can tell it's Oysterhead. All right, let's forward a little bit. Frankie, you got a time code for this one, or should I go 222 again?
Just roll the dice. Let's see where you click.
Here. 353.
I will always cherish the memories.
All that footage is from the LA Palladium show in 2001, according to Stu's YouTube channel here. This is the description that Stewart attached to this, by the way, on YouTube. Oysterhead taught me how much fun it is to cut up tracks and build music on slim evidence. This time I had a raging show, but just this board mix to work with. Couldn't help but fly in some other wrong stuff. Don't expect too much from the movie. The less time I spend twirling images, the more tracks I'll get around to posting. And he's talking about the visual element, of course, of the YouTube video that accompanies the audio. It's funny, he says the more tracks I'll get around to posting, and I don't think he's posted any cut-up Oysterhead since, right, Frankie?
Nothing.
Yeah. He didn't post this on his YouTube channel until September of 22. Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe it was hard to find for a while, Frankie.
Or maybe he's busy. He just finally got around to it, got around to finishing it and getting it to put out an accepted version with the other guys.
Website went dark. Who knows? Sometime in the mid-aughts, I imagine. So if you weren't one of the industrious people such as Frankie and myself to download the tracks, you didn't have them. That was back when things weren't forever on the internet, Soya.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have them. I never found that website.
YouTube.com. Search for your buddy Stewart Copeland, and you'll find it now. That's the nice part. They're just fun little abstract looks at Oysterhead, I suppose, through the lens of Stu. Turning back to the tour, Soya, you being an accomplished drummer and quite a unique drummer in your own right, What was it like seeing Stewart Copeland?
So what happened was they did that, a New Orleans show.
Yeah.
I think Jerry Johnson actually was there for that, I recall. And then he didn't want to do the tour when it came up after they made the record.
Okay.
I think the New Orleans show they did before they recorded the record, right?
Oh, yeah, long before.
Yeah.
So whatever, I was out doing whatever Sheryl Crow at that point, and whatever. I heard about it, and me and Les talked about it, and he was all, "Yeah, Stu Daddy was out there, dude." I was like, "Nah, fuck, I missed it." I'm not flying to New Orleans to go see a show, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess they made the record, and then I get a phone call from Derek Featherstone, Shambling Bear. You might know who that dude is.
Yep.
And he's like, "Hey, dude, check it out. They recorded this Oysterhead record. It's with Stewart Copeland." I don't think I even knew about the New Orleans show. I was like, "Wait, what'd you just say?" He's like, "Yeah, Trey, Anastasia on guitar." And I was like, "Whoa, that's heavy." He goes, "Well, we did this show, and we're going to do the tour. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Dude, are you kidding? To go out and drum tech Stewart Copeland? Of course I want to do that, dude. I don't give a fuck what the music is, you know?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, here's the deal. Les had me call you because he wants you to be his bass tech. He would prefer you be his bass tech, although he knows how much you would love to be Stewart's tech. But he needs an ally out there. And you're always the first dude to go out and hang out with him." And I was like, "Okay, well, then I'll do that. I don't care."
Yeah.
That's how I got on the tour, was that, you know. And then call Les and we talk about it. He's just like, "Dude, yeah, we made this record. It's really fucking hilarious. And we had a good time and should be good." And I was like, "All right."
Because it was mostly Phish crew.
So then that's what it became, and that was the reason why I say Les said he needed, or Derek said he needed an ally, was because 99% of the crew was Phish crew, because Phish was selling out multiple nights at arenas, you know, and Les and Primus were just back to like, you know, whatever, Warfield or theaters or doing whatever they did, you know.
Right.
So they kind of called the shots on that at first, but then Les wanted to be diplomatic and it not just be a Phish show with Les and Stewart. Stewart had no crew or hadn't toured in forever, so they agreed that the front of house mixer and the recording dude and the monitor dude were from Ultrasound.
Okay, yeah.
Which is the Primus Grateful Dead sound company, right?
Right.
And everybody else was Phish. So it was like me and Les, like in the sea of Phish crew, you know?
Yeah. So
Which
he needed a familiar face.
He needed an ally, a buddy to be out there with him, and that I could be his bass tech and had for many, many years here and there and off and on. It was a perfect fit, you know?
Nice.
They don't just have to pay me to go out there and be his personal assistant. I can be his bass tech, and there's lots of days off. I know how to hang out with him. I know how to handle him and all that stuff. So it was cool. I took it, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it was honorable to get asked to do that for what an epic tour it became, you know? Yeah. I was glad he called me, not Thompson Fred. Thompson Fred can't tech instruments, so that's why he didn't get the call. So.
Shout out, by the way, to Jerry Johnson and Flounce.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good dudes right there. So how was it working with the Phish crew? I mean, those are all seasoned vets anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they were all famous in the Phish world with the fans. It was kind of, some of them were, like the lighting guy was Chris Kuroda, and he had a group of dudes that were like his fan club dudes. It was called the CK5, and they had stickers they'd hand out at every show, and all the Phish cases had CK5 stickers all over them. That's and stuff. Amazing. And I was just like, man, this is like another world, dude. Yeah. And the drum tech that did Stewart was Pete Carini. He's no longer working for Phish, but he was their drum tech at the time. And then the guitar tech was this guy, Brian Brown, who was Trey's tech. And Pete Carini, by the way, was John Fishman's tech on Phish.
Oh, okay. So that was kind of a natural fit.
Yeah, so that's how he did that. And Brian Brown was this hilarious character, white-haired older dude. He'd been touring for 200 years, and he just was straight dry humor, hilarious dude. You know, I had a great time with all those guys, man. It was just a bunch of dudes you didn't know, and all of a sudden you're like on tour for 6 weeks together. You know,
yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
traveling on the bus and drinking beers, and those guys smoked a lot of weed, which I don't smoke weed. So,
but it sounds like you meshed nicely. And
yeah. Good. And you get the respect because, I'm coming out there with Les Claypool.
Yeah.
And they all knew I wasn't just some random dude that got hired to be the bass tech, it was like me and Les were coming out as a package, and so you get a little more respect. We're not just some dude that Derek found in the Bay Area,
Yeah, you're Tim Soya. They know that name.
Right on. Yeah, right on. None of those guys knew fuck all about Primus that I remember being aware of, but they had a good time with Les. He's a funny guy,
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, take us. So, kind of, you talked about how Stewart was having a good time, but take us through those three principal guys. So, Stu's having a good time being out on the road again. He wrote about that in his book too. That he was just thrilled to be out there.
And then, Trey was having a great time because it wasn't Phish, and it was like a welcomed break for him, because Phish is just full on back then and for decades after, even to now, but everybody got along great on the stage. Like I'm saying, when those guys were jamming, it was really funny, and they were always trying to get the juices flowing at sound check. And that's why when I said earlier, we thought there'd be more, because they just wouldn't stop, like every sound check was like an hour of them fucking around and coming up with ideas. And it's like, oh man, this might go into album 2 or something. Wow. But the coolest thing was getting to meet and become friends with Trey and Stewart mainly, and of course all the Phish crew. But being around Stewart Copeland, for me, being a Police fan since I was a little kid, like Ghost in the Machine and Zenyatta Mondada was like, when I was a little kid, those songs were on the radio,
Yeah.
And I never got to see the Police back then. Almost got to see him on Ghost in the Machine, and my parents pulled the plug, and then I was like, fuck. And then when they came around on Synchronicity, they played at the stadium, and it was a Day on the Green festival, and the opening bands were all new wave bands. It was like Thompson Twins and so I was like, I'm not going to that. I don't give a shit. Not knowing that it would be the final time the Police would play at that point. That was the final tour that you could have seen them before they broke up.
Yeah. Of course, you never know when that's going to happen. So you were thinking, they'll come back around in a year or two.
Totally. Or I didn't care at the time. I just whatever. The Police, they were like mega huge, wrapped around your finger, and every breath you take is like on every musical listening format everywhere you went, every day, everywhere. So you're just like, I give a fuck about going to see the Police, man. I'm fucking tired of this shit, man.
You told Stu all those things, right? Not kidding.
We didn't talk too much about the Police, actually. It was kind of, it felt good to not like be a fanboy and some fan. It's like I'm with Les, and when you hung out, that's just kind of what you learn when you work in the industry and you're around superstars. You don't fanboy them unless you really find the proper moment and you're alone and you're sitting down and you go, hey man, I gotta tell you, then you can like have a little conversation about it. But we never really talked about the Police too much. I remember one time Les, because Stewart's famous for, what is the term, not having a very friendly relationship with Sting.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty well documented. Those two butted heads, like, once the Superstar happened.
Pretty frosty. Yeah.
And so Les said it one day. We were all sitting there, and he's like, Stewart, so what's up? You're like this cool dude, man. It's love hanging out with you, man. But what's with the rap you have of being like the biggest asshole in the industry? Like you and Sting fighting and shit. And Stewart's like, oh, well, I'll tell you, my thrashing days are over. I'm done with that stuff. I just try to get through everything and have a good level head on everything. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's a chapter in Stewart's book about Oysterhead, and he details Les encountering Sting, I think on the tour.
Ooh, I might not have been there. I might have been loading out when something like that happens. Although I had Uber access to go hang out in the dressing room and hang out with those guys because I was Les's dude. The show ends and the band goes to the VIP, and I go pack up all Les's shit and help those guys get it on the truck. By the time we're done, and you get in the back, go to grab some beers, half the VIP people have left,
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's an hour later and, whatever. So that might have happened. I don't remember that happening. I don't remember talking to Les about it, but maybe I did. I don't recall.
Yeah, I think they had a very brief interaction that the way Stewart relays it in the book is pretty funny.
I'm sure it entails something to the point of Sting having no idea who Primus was or who Les was.
Unlike Steve Winwood, who watched every note there, right?
Steve Winwood, who feigned knowledge of the band and how great they were on stage, with us well knowing he was lying through his teeth on both topics. Or what do you call it?
But it's Steve Winwood, so you go, thanks, man. You're cool.
That was exactly it, man. You just go, right on, man. Cool. Have a good set. And then we got on the bus and left. It's like, we didn't watch him. We left.
Yeah. Steve Winwood paid us lip service. Hell yeah.
I wish I would have watched Steve Winwood for what a legend the guy is. It just we didn't have time and Les wasn't into it or whatever. Whatever. But it's like it would have been something I probably would have wanted to see a song at least.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe we did. Maybe me and Les walked up there. It's a long time ago.
It is.
Yeah. So we got all of Les's gear together and it got shipped out back east. Where did we rehearse for that? We rehearsed in Seattle. That's where it started.
Right.
And we went into a little dinky little jam room that was in the same rehearsals complex of shitty dirtbag rehearsal rooms where Alice in Chains got their start, which was kind of funny. And whatever, we just they rehearsed and they were going over all this shit. And the next thing you know, we're at the Paramount and we're doing the first show,
Yeah. I remember in the lead up, there was an interview with them, a couple days before that first gig, and they were at a Mariners game. In Seattle, and it was one of those things where Les said, "I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I don't care about sports," and that always stuck with me. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. It's that brings up another funny moment. I'll tell you guys. I don't know if I told you this, but God, when was that? It would have been 1992 or 3. And I'm hanging out with Les. He picks me up. We're gonna go do something stupid. I don't know. Victim's Family was going on, so I wasn't working for them, and we went to his house in Berkeley when he had his old Berkeley house.
Okay.
And he was in the process of kind of moving out. They had bought their place in Sebastopol, but I didn't know that at the time, right? He didn't tell me. But anyway, we walk into his house. We're going to grab something to go do something. I don't remember what the hell we were doing. And I was back when you had the phone machines with the cassette tape in it, and people would call and go beep and go after the tone, leave a message.
Yeah.
And Les is like, "Hold on, dude, I got a couple messages. Let me check it." And he hit it, and I was just kind of standing there behind him, and it's all. So, "Hey, Les, what's going on, man? It's Getty. Just letting you know we're in town. Like I told you yesterday, but we're here. But we're gonna go see the Giants game today. And if you want to come, you can. If not, whatever. If not, we'll have dinner tonight. And he's like looking at me, he's all, "Fucking Getty Lee on my fucking message machine, dude." Because he knew I was a Rush fan too, and I was like, "Dude." Even he was all, "Hey, Getty Lee, it's on my machine, dude." Awesome. And I was like, "Oh, you gonna go to the game?" He's like, "Fuck that, I ain't going to no baseball game. Fuck baseball." And then we went and did something. I don't remember what the hell we were doing, but we went and did something that day. And then he had to go have dinner with Getty and Alex that night or something.
Oh man! And of course, Getty is a well-known baseball freak.
Of course,
yeah,
of course.
Wow, that's funny.
But Seattle was cool. I remember the opening night was it was ecstatic. The sold out Paramount Theater was like 4,000 people or something. So it was like,
wow, the
nerves were on end on both sides of the barricade. Those guys doing their first live gig, as a band with a record out. Having to do it. It was cool, and that was you get to meet all these new crew guys and get to meet Stewart Copeland. You get to meet Trey and Anastasio and.
Were there nerves? It sounds like there may have been, just because this was October 2001, so this is a year and a half after that initial supposedly one-off performance in New Orleans.
Yeah, I wasn't at that New Orleans performance, and I'd have to ask Les. I don't recall if that New Orleans show was just a bunch of jamming, or were some of the tunes on the record played at that show in New Orleans?
Some songs were premiered in skeletal form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was a lot of jamming, though, and in Stewart's own words, it was a train wreck.
Yeah, I think they probably got together and rehearsed for a few days.
Yeah.
And loosely put together stuff to do it just to see if it would be fun. And I'm sure they recorded it and said, "Okay, let's take that funny jam and let's kind of make a 4-minute version of it, or whatever."
That's exactly how the record came together for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
So they played Seattle. Well, it's kind of cool. I'm looking at this first set list of Seattle 2001. Mm-hmm. They pretty much play the entire record, and then they encore with Shadow of a Man from the record and Immigrant Song. So that must have been fun to see.
Oh.
But I'm sure you saw that in rehearsal, but it's fun that they busted that out.
I don't remember that. That's funny. Yeah, Shadow of a Man was interesting. That was a Les tune. He had this idea that I brought it to fruition. He would put on this army helmet, right? Because it's about going to Vietnam and coming back a heroin junkie.
Right.
Right. he's like, yeah, dude, we got to figure this out. I want to do like a mic on the helmet. Because he would put the helmet on, he put on those glasses that are two lights shining forward. And he would just kind of go downstage, or he'd sing, and then when he wasn't singing, he'd go downstage and get in people's faces, and it was all creepy, you know? And so I figured out with the sound guy, I cut out a bunch of foam, and we put a wireless pack, and he had a little mic so that he didn't have to stay at the microphone when he could creep out everybody on the downstage edge for the whole song.
Oh, right on.
And we got it together. It worked. It was really cool. It was like the less creepy moment. It was kind of funny.
It is the dark, creepy tune on the album, so that it's great that it's amplified by that performance art piece. Because I remember the helmet with the lights, but I didn't know he had a wireless, so he could deliver the vocals and freak out.
It didn't start out with the microphone, but I mean, very quickly, he's like, dude, we got to figure this out. I don't want to be stuck at the mic. And I was like, all right. Let's just fucking figure it out, you know? And we figured it out like as quick as we could. Other funny one on that was Trey has a guitar that's got like a elk antler connected to it. Are you familiar with that?
The Matterhorn.
The Matterhorn, correct. Yeah. And so whatever that song was, he would bust the Matterhorn out. It was really funny. It was a really mellow, weird, creepy tune as well. He had this stomp box pedal that was called a octave whammy, and it was like a operational foot thing, you know. And as you operated it, it would go. If you made a note, it would go. Like
that's what that sound is, because it's all over the record in the live shows.
And so he would like put on the Matterhorn, and then him and Stewart and Les would like kind of hold it down for a second, and Trey would get into his moment, and he would there was 9 points on this gigantic elk, if you've seen a picture of it. Yeah. And he would wave his hands around the points of the antler, and he'd go woo, woo, like it was a theremin, you know. It kind of made it that, but each point he'd go to then he could hit it to a different octave, and it'd be out whatever antler point he was on. It was really fucking funny.
Oh, that's the secret behind it. Because, of course, at the time, there was all this speculation about what the trick was, because he obviously wasn't manipulating an elk antler.
It looked the fuck like it. You know, like it was a theremin. You know?
It was incredibly convincing, is what I remember reading from people who were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. That's really funny. And to sell it like that, too, like it's a theremin. It's very
it was part of the act, man. It was great, dude. It was super fucking hilarious every night. But the other thing of note, that once we got out there, one of the things Derek had told me when he said Pete Carini was going to do it, he goes, dude, don't worry about it. You'll get to meet the dude. Of course, you'll be with Les. But you're going to actually be stoked because Stewart's going to have a boatload of shit out there. And I was like, oh, okay. And sure enough, Stewart had a boatload of shit out there, dude. It was 2 risers. Like his drum set riser was a 10x10 riser, which is normally they're 8x8 feet.
Oh, so it's big to begin with.
God damn. You know, 3 rack toms, 2 floor toms, fucking cymbals everywhere, like just gigantic, you know? And then he had another 10x10 riser connected to it on his right that was this percussion rig.
Yeah.
You had to have seen pictures of it, right?
Yeah, his stand-up percussion rig. All those cool toys.
And dude, that thing went from a bunch of stuff in the rehearsal room to by the second week of the tour, like boxes were showing up every single day. And Pete Carini was losing his mind because because Stewart wouldn't ask anybody, or he just be in his hotel room and just ordering shit from his pasty and drum companies, and just shit started fucking showing up. And Pete's having to tape up cardboard boxes every night after the show because we didn't have road cases for any of it, you know?
Oh, wow.
And it was like, God damn, dude, I am so glad I just got 3 basses that Les plays in his little rig, you know? I was like, Derek was right.
yeah, that turned out all right for you from a work standpoint.
Yeah. Stewart was a cool dude, though. He wasn't a dick. He was never a dick to Pete Carini. He was never demanding or you know, commanding or whatever the hell.
Yeah, more. I'm sure he just seems like a reasonable, collaborative guy when you're working with him.
Yeah, his thrashing days are over, right?
That's right.
So he was a cool dude. But the interesting thing was right then was when Stewart's signature Tama snare drum was released.
Oh.
Like they made a Tama, you know, Stewart Copeland signature. And I have one, actually.
Nice.
And dude, they would do like the first set was like how long, Frankie? An hour plus?
Yeah, normally.
And then they wouldn't do 2 sets. They would walk off and they would come out and do an encore, I think, right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like on the set lists.
And so Pete Carini, after the first set, he had 2 Copeland snare drums and he'd swap it out. And so, or halfway through, when he would go to the percussion rig and stand up and play, Pete would swap the snare out, right? And he would undo the head of the one he played the first half of the first set with, and it would go, like he just beating the living fuck out of it, dude.
Wow.
It was awesome. And so he'd have to swap it out because Stewart's just constantly tightening it because he's hitting so crazily. And so then they'd walk off for the encore, and Pete Carini would have already put a new head on the snare number 1 and swap that out with snare number 2 so we could do the encore with a fresh head again because the head for the second half of the set was just done. Yeah. When you undid, like plastic was so stretched he couldn't tighten it anymore.
Wow.
So he went through 3 drum heads a night on the snare drum.
I did not know that. I didn't know
Nobody knows. Not too many people know that, but I know that.
So it's mostly a product of him tightening it so much that it's just not going to hold after a time.
Well, the more you beat on it, it just stretches out, and you tighten it to get it back to taut, being where it cracks again. And then you keep doing it over and over to where the head is either going to break or you just can't tighten it anymore.
Yeah.
And then it breaks.
Yeah. And that Stewart, that crack is
he does the traditional grip, and he snaps at it. It's phenomenal to stand around and watch him do it, because it's loud as hell. And as you've seen Victim's Family, that's how I play as well. So I loved every minute of it,
Yeah. Did you pick up anything from watching him play? Did you pick his brain at all?
No, not really. I didn't talk drums with him too much. I'm courteous enough to know that I'm lucky to be in the presence of superstars when I am like that. And I try not to be like fanboy and unless it's a good moment. And there never was. It never came. I didn't sit there and go, dude, well, canary in a coal mine. How come you didn't hit any crash cymbals? Stuff like that,
Yeah.
He didn't want to talk about that stuff. He's been talking about it for decades, So.
Oh, sure. I'm sure you were watching him from time to time.
Well,
though,
yeah,
so
of course.
If you got
every night.
on,
I totally stand right behind him at sound check sometimes and just peep it, like being that close. It was fun. I will say, he promised to give me one of those snare drums because I'm like, come on, dude, you got to give me one of those. You got 2 of them. And he's like, oh. He's like, yeah, I've got about 10 in my garage. I'll send you one. I'll get you a brand new one out of the box. And I was like, okay, cool. And I never got it, right?
Yeah.
And ironically, I was doing a Alanis Morris set, and we were doing rehearsals in L.A., and me and the drummer went to go to a store to buy some stuff. And in North Hollywood, on the Burbank side, the Valley side, the drummer for 311, Chad Sexton, had a little drum shop for a while.
Oh.
And it was kind of like just a little mom and pop little drum shop, right? And so we needed to get some heads or something. I can't remember. And he's like, come on, dude, you got to come with me. You got to see Chad's shop. It's really cool. It's tiny, hole in the wall little place, but they're cool. And I try to bring all my business there instead of going to Guitar Center. And so we go there. It's cool. Just like you said, little shop, 10 snare drums and some heads and some cymbals and a little old lady working there and some kids. And and he's over there talking to them because he was friends. And I'm looking at the little rack of snare drums while he's doing that. And fuck, there's a Stewart Copeland signature snare drum right here. And I pull it out. I'm kind of looking at it. Look at the price tag, and it's like $400. Ooh. And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, Victor and Drizzo was the drummer. He's like, what's up? I'm like, come here. I'm like, do you see this? You know what this is? He goes, no, what is it? I'm like, it's Stewart Copeland signature snare. He goes, oh shit, I didn't know about these. I'm like, dude, it's only $400. When they came out, they were like, $700 or whatever.
No way.
And it was used. He goes, well, I'm getting it, dude. I'm totally fucking getting it. I'm like, dude, you have to have one of these. This is fucking rad. So he buys it, and he buys the shit that we had to purchase for what we needed. And we're like, okay, say goodbye to those people. We walk out the door, shut the door, turn to the car, was parked right there, and he turns to me, he goes, here you go, dude, happy birthday. And he handed me the snare drum.
Ah, yeah.
Because my birthday was like in 2 days or some shit like that. And I was just like, no way, dude, cool. The story continues. Once I got the snare drum, I was able to really look at it. I was like, hey, what makes this any different than any other snare drum, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking, and it's like, oh, it's really heavy. So I go online, and I find out the shell is 3 times thicker than a regular steel shell, right?
Oh, damn.
It's like a super heavy, thick shell. And the top rim is a die-cast hoop, whereas the bottom rim is a triple flanged bent out hoop, which you'll see on most drums have that flanged little ears that kick out where the tension rods tighten it down.
Oh, yes.
So because I was in Victim's Family on tours in punk rock level, I was tightening my snare so tight that where the ear popped out and the tension rod went in, it would crack on the rim. And so I started putting die-cast hoops on the tops of all my snare drums, so the few that I had at the time. But being a broke punk drummer, I couldn't afford to get a die-cast hoop for the bottom, and I didn't care. I was like, I just want the top.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, shit, look at Stewart Copeland's signature snare has a die-cast hoop and a bent hoop on the bottom. That's the magic. It's got to be something about that. That's why they did it. So years go by, and it's on my brain. I'm talking to other drummer friends now and again about it. No one's got an answer as to what this magic is and how did I stumble on it in Victim's Family. You know, like I was on to the Copeland secret, right? And sure enough, soon after that, you know, I was with Les and we were doing some Primus thing, and Stewart came down, you know, and it was just like I fucking remembered, and I was like, dude, oh my god, I gotta ask you. I got your snare drum. I got one. He goes, oh, cool. I'm like, you gotta tell me, dude, what is the science of the die cast on the top and the bent on the bottom? And he's like, is that how it is? That's how my snare drum is? I was like, what? He goes, oh, I just, you know, had my guy at the time get out the old police snare drum and threw it at Tama and said, recreate this. Like, he talks like that when you talk to him. It's really funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, come on, man. Talk about a heartbreaker. Fucking ball buster. Jake. Man, what? You don't know anything about it? It's like, all right, whatever. End of story.
No big secret.
The way I'm sure whatever moment on the police, whatever drum tech was probably experiencing the same thing I was and did that. But Stewart didn't have any fucking clue, you know? I mean, there's no other reason why it would be like that, you know?
That sounds like a tech work, right? Or something a tech might discover.
Well, you get tired of the snare drum rim cracking, and you have to swap the snare drum out, you know? Because it won't tighten anymore, because it just peels away as you tighten it.
Yeah, screw this. I'm going to put this down.
I'm getting die-cast hoops for the tops of these snare drums, and that's what I did.
The secret is still out there, if there even is one, for the Stewart Copeland snare sound.
Sorry, I digressed on that one.
No,
it was a funny Stewart thing, yeah.
When we look at this band that has been around, and it really has only popped up here and there over 20-odd years, they've done a grand total, Soya, of 26 shows. And 20 of them were that 2001 tour. You were there for the vast majority of the Oysterhead shows. So you have that little feather.
I still have some of the swag I got. We got a poster and a shirt and a long sleeve shirt. You know, you get a little bag of merch at the end, and one of the shirts was like a green one, and it's got the Grand Pecking Order like stripe here, and on the back it's got the tour dates.
Oh, nice.
And post-pandemic, we were open again at the cafe, and I was wearing it one afternoon, and this girl that worked at the music store was in buying a coffee, and I turned around to do something. She's like, dude, nice shirt. She's probably like in her 20s, early 20s. And I was like, you know who this is? She's like, yeah, dude, Oysterhead. That looks like the tour shirt. What show did you catch? I looked at her and I said, all of them. And my daughter Lucy's standing there and she's just like shaking her head laughing.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you were on the tour? I was like, yeah, I was on the tour.
That's cool that you get those every once in a while. Like,
I'm just always surprised that the young kids that all say Primus sucks when they see me wearing a hoodie. And my kids wear all the Primus swag, and they get it sometimes. And they're like, Dad, I'm walking down the street, some dude just goes, Primus sucks, as I walk by him, and I realized I was wearing a Primus hoodie or something. You know, I was like, oh. It's a cult, dude. It's a cult.
Yes, it's the benefit, and the benefit of being a Soya is that people will point it out to you.
You get a lot of Primus swag.
You do, and then you get weirdos saying Primus sucks to you on the street, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a long time, and I am curious, and it's kind of in a dark direction. But this tour was delayed by, of course, the fallout from 9/11.
Oh, that's right.
Was there any weirdness around that? Because the first
No,
show
the,
was
the only moment that I was tripped out was that 9/11 happened. We postponed, then we finally got back and got it going. The band flew in or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was right when the auto check-in with your credit card was happening. You know, where you just go to the kiosk and you don't have to stand in line and go talk to the lady and check your bag.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like now you go to the kiosk, you get your bag tag, you tag your bag yourself, you roll up and you show your ID and hand your bag and you're done, right?
Yeah.
And your boarding pass got printed up. And Stewart Copeland was telling me about that. I was like, hey, man, how was flying, dude, after 9/11? He goes, oh, dude, it was a fucking breeze, man. It was the greatest thing ever. I was like, what?
Wow.
It's like they got these machines now. You put your credit card in and all of a sudden you're done. And you just go to security. And I was like, wow, that sounds trippy after 9/11. And it's like the world's got to go on even after, epic tragedies happen. So, but
I think
travel.
I think a lot of people weren't flying immediately after that, so there probably weren't that. It wasn't very crowded, I imagine, too. So Stewart had to do.
Yeah, and those guys are rolling first class, so I mean, whatever, It's like I don't think Stewart Copeland's ever put out too much being at an airport,
Right? Yeah, he's doing all right. He's going to get
that made
VIP
that big
treatment.
of a difference, but he was just amazed that technology had just been introduced right then.
Yeah, that is interesting timing.
Yep. And it was a month after 9/11 or shortly after 9/11,
Yeah, it was.
That was.
Yeah, it would have been right around a month that they all would have flown into Seattle to start rehearsing.
Right on.
Wow. And what an interesting tour, because it was only 20 dates in about 30 days, a little less than 30 days. Of course, because it was kind of a novelty working with the Phish guys, watching Oysterhead, Stewart's there. Trey Anastasio's there. You definitely have some concrete memories. What else springs to mind when you think of those guys, or just hanging out backstage or on the bus and whatnot?
I'll tell you another funny story that I've told this story before. So as the tour progresses, and I'm actually just hanging out with the band guys on days off, because Les is like, dude, we're hanging out. Like, it was like known I was just going to be with him as almost all times, right? Not that he couldn't hang out with those guys, but he just wanted his ally there with him, to his little buddy, to be like cracking jokes. And I laugh at all his jokes, and he loves that, And I know all his jokes. I can egg his jokes on in situations. You know what I mean? It's like, so I'm with him constantly, hanging out with Trey and going to get lunch with Stewart or on days off. And Trey takes a liking to me in the sense that I told him I'm into Slayer, and when I came up in music, I was into heavy metal and thrash metal in the early 80s. And he was enamored by that because he'd never heard any of it.
Oh, wow.
Like, he'd never listened to Slayer. He knew about Metallica, but, like, it just was not his cup of tea. And so he kept saying, man, I got to hear this Slayer band, dude. We got to work this out, man. You got to play me some Slayer. And I was like, all right. So we were heading into New York City to do, I think, Radio City we might have done on that tour, right?
Roseland Ballroom. Correct? 2 nights at Roseland.
2 nights at Roseland, right on. With Mark Ribot was the opening act. Was cool.
Oh, nice.
I remember that. So I go to I'm out with Les, and I go, oh, hold on, dude. There's a CD store. And I go in and I buy Slayer Seasons in the Abyss that opens with War Ensemble, which is the greatest opener of any record because it's just so ballistic, right?
Yeah, it's nuts.
I'm like, I'm getting this for Trey. He's like, dude, he's not going to listen to Slayer. And I was like, dude, he keeps begging me to play him Slayer. And that's before we had phones and iPad or, iPods and all that shit that hadn't really hit yet. And so we had a night off in New York City, and the crew was staying at some hotel, and the band was staying at this famous hotel called the Riga Royal. And I'd stayed there a few times because it was the hotel that, if you did Letterman, they'd put you at the Riga Royal. Right?
Oh,
the band.
Okay, so you've been there, yeah.
And so I think we actually even did Letterman on Oysterhead. Did we do that?
Conan.
No, we did Conan. Okay.
Conan.
So anyway, so the band are staying at the Riga Royal. And the Riga Royal is suites. It's not just like a tiny little New York City room. It's like living room, bedroom, kind of, And so Les is like, hey, man, come over here and meet us at the hotel. We're all going to go to dinner, but we're going to meet up in Trey's room and hang out and have some drinks. I was like, okay, cool. And I had the Slayer CD. So I cab it over there. Get in the room. We're all hanging out, and Trey's wife's there, and, Stewart and me and Les and some other Phish fans, or not fans, but friends close. It was like about 10 people are standing around having drinks, talking. And we're in this living room, and there's like a stereo, and I give Trey the CD. He's like a kid that just got like the tricycle that he'd been or the skateboard. He was just like, no way, dude. You got this for me? I was like, dude, there's a stereo right there. Let's fucking put this shit on. He goes, hell yes. And he unwraps it and takes it out. He's looking at it. He's like, fuck yeah. We open the CD player, put it in, and it's all. And he's just all, oh my God, this is Slayer. And right then his wife has like a glass of wine, and she like kind of in the other room through the doorway could hear it. And she walks to the doorway and she sees me and Trey just like going laughing, and she just like reaches down slowly, talking to her friend, and just turns the volume all the way down. So there was nothing. And like I look at Trey and he's like, well, that was that. He's not, I'll listen to it another time. He just was so happy he wanted to hear it. She was not having it, dude.
Oh, man.
Bunch of Phish friends, and we're cranking fucking Slayer. Les was laughing so hard. He's like, dude, that was so funny.
That's excellent. Yeah,
So
some people
funny.
aren't won over by Slayer in the first 30 seconds, strangely. I
Well,
don't
Trey
understand.
was. He thought it was great. He signed. I had all the guys sign the tour poster at the end, and he said, they had some song where they'd say, you can come around here. Or
Oh,
something.
Birthday Boys, yeah.
Yeah, and so he signed it. He's all, yo, Soya. He's like, you can come around anytime you want and keep that Slayer fucking cranking or something like that. You know, it's like, was that what he wrote? Or, well,
That's so awesome.
Something like that. I can't remember, man.
Oh, what a great moment.
But I do remember we were somewhere towards the end, and we were doing some bigger shows because it was back east, like in Virginia, maybe. It was some auditorium or something. It was bigger, like general admission on the floor, like maybe like 8,000 or 9,000 people. It was a big gig.
Oh, wow.
And Trey starts talking about, dude, let's do this in arenas next year. This is great, man. We got to keep this rolling. And Les was just like, dude, no.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't the point of this. The point was to make this a special thing. And they went off and went and had a meeting about it. And I don't know, then no other tour ever happened about it. So
There was an idea to keep it limited, make it special.
I feel, because I witnessed that little conversation go down, I kind of feel like that was the idea of it, was this is a super band, but we're not going to milk it. Let's just do a cool tour. And if it does good, it does good, you know? But it was easy to get caught up in. We could do this and that and this and make it bigger and do this. And it was just like, it never happened.
Yeah. The rarity of Oysterhead post 2001, a grand total of 5 shows since that 2001 tour wrapped.
Mm-hmm.
And they all talk about it. They're all big dogs and they've got really busy schedules and it's really hard to line them up. And so 5 shows in 22 years tells you something. You know, clearly they want to do it, but it's hard to do.
Yeah,
So
and
it's interesting.
I would guess that's a Les Claypool instigated thing, you know, knowing how he's like that, where it's a nugget of special moment and he doesn't want to be cheesy and just like milk everybody for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special thing, so that when they did come back and do it again, it was a special thing and everybody went, you know. It was cool, right?
Every time there's an Oysterhead announcement ever since, those tickets are gone.
And I think that's kind of what it was about. It wasn't about, all right, we're going to do this other band and fuck Primus and fuck Phish. Let's just do this now. You know, it was never that.
Right.
It was kind of always kind of known this was a special thing. And if you saw it, you saw it. If we do it again, we'll see.
Yeah. And that's of interest to me, just given that in Stewart's book, the excerpt that I read that our pal Gino was kind enough to scan and send me. Thank you, Gino. That Stewart was he was revving. He was ready to go. He would have done it all over again. He was ready to, live the tour life for a long time again. He was.
Yeah, because he hadn't really done that in a long time. And he was really fired up every day and every show. And the jamming just started extending and the shows got long, you know. Mm-hmm. It'd be like 2.5 hours sometimes because they were just having so much fun, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's what we found in these live cuts, right, Frankie, with these.
Yeah.
They're exploring, they're playing around, they're having fun, they're goofing off. It can be sloppy in parts and disjointed, but it didn't really matter, I think. Well, it sounds like it was a great time all around. Crowds, of course, were massive and people came away loving it.
It was kind of like the first moment Les got accepted into the jam world. I mean, he came out with the Frog Brigade with that intention to find a new audience, you know?
Yeah.
And then he did that. Him and Trey had met and, on some festivals or some shit. And dude, it just kind of it cemented him in with those peoples, that he had done that, And I remember we were doing Frog Brigade stuff. I want to say it was before Oysterhead. I can't remember. Phish was playing in Las Vegas. They were doing 2 nights sold out at the Thomas Mack Arena, right? The big arena.
Yeah, those guys came over. Stu and Trey
so
came over.
One
to the
night,
Frog. Yeah.
one of the nights, Frog Brigade played at the House of Blues at like midnight. It was like an after Phish show kind of thing, whatever. Maybe we did 2 nights. I can't remember, but
is that the one where Stu and Trey showed up and they jumped on stage and played Oysterhead tune? Yeah.
We were in Vegas. I drove all the gear in a U-Haul van, or like a Ryder truck with all the band's gear. We got there. We went to the Phish show. It was the most packed I've ever seen an arena in my entire life. Like they fucking crammed fucking people in that arena. And the stage, like when you're like in the arena and there's like the round floor.
Yeah.
Like where there could be a hockey rink or a basketball court.
Yeah.
And usually the stage is set up and there's like people like in front of the stage and around the arena, right?
Right.
The stage was back so far that when we walked in the back and you're at the back of the stage and it's like, oh, we can stand over here with Brian Brown, the guitar tech. And you literally had to turn sideways to get past the corner of the stage that was pressed so far back.
Oh my God.
You couldn't even, it was, and then there was this like, holy fuck, look at all these fucking people crammed in here, dude. This is fucking crazy. And it was in the round. There was people all the way around,
Oh my God.
It's amazing.
That was September 30, 2000, House of Blues.
Okay, so I got it. So
yeah,
we do the gigs. We party out at the Mandalay Bay after. They had a big after party. We all hung out, had beers, and Oysterhead hadn't happened then. I'm positive. That was before Oysterhead, right?
This was about 4 months after the one-off show.
Okay. So get done. And I think somebody else drove the truck back. That was the deal. I drove it out and somebody else drove it back, right?
Oh, okay.
And so I flew home. And I'm at SFO, San Francisco Airport. I'm waiting for my bag. And there's all these hippies, Phish fans,
yeah.
And, people standing around because they all went to the Phish shows in Vegas. And I'm standing, this like total hippie chick is on the phone, and she's like standing right next to me. She's like, "Oh my God, it was so amazing! Like Frog Brigade came out, they played all the best stuff. They played Here's to the Man. Then Stewart came out, and I was just like, how the fuck do you know about Here's to the Man? It's like, are you fucking kidding me? So right then was when I realized, oh my God, Les has done it. He's grabbed a new audience, and they're back cataloging, and they're getting into his stuff, and like it was proof that it was valid, he did it.
Yeah. I mean, that's legit, especially if they're praising
Here's
out, to the Man.
Yeah, calling out a song like Here's to the Man. Like, I was just kind of like I snapped my head, like, what? And looked at her to see what she's wearing. I'm like, oh my God, it's a total Phish fan that knows the Sausage record. Holy shit, that's rad.
That's great. Yeah, and of course, if you do a record with Trey, you're going to get some cachet in that world. So,
but they hadn't even done it yet,
right? Yeah, they just did the
one show,
mm-hmm.
And then Les was just going around playing all the hippie fests with Frog Brigade.
Yeah, boy, he really took that. I wouldn't say by storm, but he certainly ingratiated himself into that scene pretty quickly.
Yeah,
that's
great.
He
was. You got to figure, you do Primus as long as we hit it as hard as we did, and he did. And that ups and downs they had, and it just kind of petered out there. But he needed something different, And I thought it was like one of the smartest moves he could have ever done because he's got the playability to adapt and do that kind of thing. I was really proud of Les. It was pretty cool that he had just completely took a right turn and everybody loved it,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, a lot of the Primus fans followed him, and then he just found this other audience that embraced him.
Yeah, I will say that when we played in Washington, D.C. at the DAR Hall, whatever it is.
Constitution Hall, yeah.
Foo Fighters came down because they were in town and they had a night off. And I knew the Foo Fighters because I'd worked with them, Nice. And I'd heard they were there. So we're doing the show and it's kind of this funny little auditorium where there's little balconies and the VIP, I could see him just like Taylor Hawkins, just like watching Stewart, made sense. Okay.
Awesome.
And so after the show, I get loaded out, go in the dressing room, and they're still hanging out. You know, I'm just like, hey, Dave, hey, fucking Taylor, what's up? Oh, yeah. I'm like, Taylor, what'd you think? He's like, I don't know, man. A little too jammy for me. Like, I was like, what? You didn't see Stewart ripping? He's like, it was good. I was like, wow. I just figured he would have just like sucked a proverbial dick at the fact that Stewart was up there, you know?
Right.
But he was honest. It was like, I wasn't so into it, man. It's kind of too jam bandy for me. I'm a rocker, man. I was like, okay, well, that's cool. I appreciate your honesty, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a nice encounter in DC.
Yeah, you know, you see your friends around all the time. It's fun.
Hell yeah. Well, Soya, thanks for coming to talk to us about the Oysterhead experience, because we've, sampled a lot of these live cuts, but it's really cool to hear about the tour because I didn't get to go see it, and now I feel like I've lived it with you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I definitely have that one under my belt as like one of my favorite tours, you know. Just that I was there was cool, you know.
It sounds like it was rewarding, and I'm glad you were able to plumb the depths of your memory at 3 a.m. And
I wish I could think of any other stupid shit, but God, that was how long ago? 30 years ago?
23 years.
23 years ago.
Yep.
I've done a few things since then that
those things might have pushed out some of those other ancillary
peoples
memories.
and gigs and places and travel. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks a lot, Soya. We appreciate it. Primates, thank you so much for listening. Later days.
Willie Mays.
Sure, I'll take some pie. I wish was partial to pie.